Hello guys, Crispy here and welcome back to another video. In this one, my friends, I'm going to be testing the GTX 1080 in Crysis Remastered. I am running it with a Ryzen 7 3700X and 16 gigs of RAM, as you can see right there. And this GPU is the Asus Strix version of the GTX 1080. It's overclocked, as you can see right here. I pushed it to 100 MHz on the core clock and 250 MHz on the memory clock over its stock values, of course. And let's just get into the game. Can it run Crysis? Let's find out, shall we? Going through the settings, I'm playing at 1080p resolution. I'm also going to be testing it at 1440p, 2560 by 1440, and 4K, 3840 by 2160. First, using the high settings without ray tracing, which I feel like you should actually play like this, to be honest, if you have a 1080, because it looks really good and it plays really well, as you're about to see. And I'm also going to be testing, of course, the Can It Run Crysis preset, which is maxed out settings in this game. So let's get right into it. Here we go. And it seems like the frames are pretty damn decent. There is no stuttering whatsoever because I actually played this through already, so it wouldn't stutter in the benchmark run, because every single time that you play a level through here in Crysis Remastered, for the first time at least, it tends to stutter quite a little bit. So I don't really like that too much. Well, nobody likes that too much, to be honest, but it's quite annoying, and I didn't want to put that in the video because the 1080 can actually do a pretty decent job once everything is loaded in, as you can probably tell. Like, it's just really great performance coming from a GTX 1080 here. Of course, it's 1080p, but the high settings look amazing in this game. The textures are actually at the Can It Run Crysis setting because it's just, the game's broken and it sets the texture quality to that setting instead of lower settings. Even if you set it to like low, medium or high in the settings menu, it's still set to Can It Run Crysis because they broke it like a week ago and they still haven't bothered to fix it. Probably because this game has so many bugs and problems that they're probably fixing that instead, you know, instead of fixing the textures, which isn't really a big deal. It just means that your VRAM utilization is going a little bit higher than it should on the high settings, but at the same time your textures are looking way prettier. So I would honestly play like this. Like, the game looks awesome with these settings. It still runs great. There's no stuttering issues aside from at the beginning of levels, so that's okay, you know. That's a very smooth, very playable experience here in Crysis. 1% lows are still above 60 FPS, and it's just amazing, you know. The 1080 is doing a fantastic job. If you have a 1080p monitor and a GTX 1080, this is definitely what I choose to play with in this game. If you enable ray tracing, you're probably gonna drop down from 60 FPS, so I don't really recommend it. And yeah, the ray tracing effects here in this game aren't really anything to write home about. The God rays, for example, are still there at these settings without the ray tracing enabled, so it still looks pretty decent in terms of the lighting and stuff like that. It's just the reflections aren't really there. Alright, so I just restarted the checkpoint. We're playing at 2560 by 1440, still SMAA 1TX, and everything over here is still the same. This is showing custom because I changed the motion blur here. I disabled that. Ray tracing is disabled, of course. Let's do this at 1440p. The game is looking amazing. Of course, it's not really a 60 FPS experience anymore, even on average, which sucks a little bit, to be honest, but it's still okay. I will personally still call this a playable experience, definitely. And if you have a 1440p monitor and want to play Crysis Remastered with pretty decent graphics, well, this is it. This is the way to go. I think it won't really drop from 30 FPS, so you're okay in that regard. But if you want 60, you could always just lower the settings to medium, and that will do 60 plus FPS at all times. High settings is really demanding in this game, by the way, but it seems like the 1080 is still handling it like a champ, as you can probably tell. Like, even here in the jungle area, it doesn't really drop from like 45 FPS, which is amazing, guys. This is also usually pretty demanding, looking in that direction, and we got 50 right there. Just wow, the game looks really beautiful here at these settings. 1440p, it looks amazing. My monitor is actually 1440p, so it's always a pleasure to me to play the games at 1440p resolution. I don't really get to play games very often at my native resolution because I'm always testing the games, and I'm usually testing games at lower settings because, well, I have a ton of lower end cards. Exactly. Yeah, let's go. Let's just keep on moving here. All right, get over here, boy. Okay, there we go. We got 60s right here. Pretty good stuff. Okay, let's do this. All right, armor mode. Okay, then let's go. Bye, dudes. Wow, look at those animations. By the way, they look okay. You know, it's a 2007 game. Do I die if I just stand here? Let's see. Yes, I do. Okay, so that's it for 1440p. 55 FPS average and 45 1% lows. Definitely still a playable experience. Now, 3840 by 2160 resolution. I'm just gonna disable the anti-aliasing right there to get 1 extra FPS. That actually put us at 30 right there, so that's amazing. And still on the high settings. Of course, the GTX 1080 is not really a 4K card, but I want to check out what it can do in Crysis Remastered at this resolution. And I think if you drop a couple of settings, maybe like shadows and stuff, reflections maybe, effects, like those more demanding options, you might actually be able to do it at 30 plus FPS and still retain quite a beautiful visual fidelity here in this game. Wow, I am definitely impressed. I was expecting like, what, 25 FPS, 30 at maximum, but no, we're getting 30 FPS average with the GTX 1080 at 4K high settings, no ray tracing. That's absolutely insane in this game, guys. Just look at this. We're in the jungle, we're still at 30. Sometimes it does drop into the high 20s, but look at this. This is insane. What the hell? This is kind of the same FPS that we were getting with the RX 560 at 1080p with the medium settings. Maybe like 1 or 2 less FPS here with the 1080, but it's an okay experience. People were saying that the game was playable with those settings with the RX 560. It's a console-like experience, you know. And yeah, if you're okay with that, I guess you could play at 4K with the GTX 1080, guys. This is insane. Really didn't expect that. I'm truly impressed right now, guys. Oh, yes. Okay, there we go. One down. Yes, okay. I know the suit's taking damage. Alright, don't mind me, you know, the suit is everything. 40 FPS right here. Pretty good, pretty good. I think this is the last one. Should we... I was gonna say, should we melee him, but no. Alright, this is insane. 29 FPS, 1% lows at 4K high settings with no ray tracing. That is completely gorgeous, my friends. That is absolutely amazing. I was not expecting this performance coming from this GPU. You're gonna try to explode this car here. Okay, there we go. It didn't drop from 30. It's dropping from 30 right now as we get really close to the fire, but not anymore. Alright, we're back here at the start of the checkpoint. 1080p resolution with the Can It Run Crysis preset. I'm just gonna disable motion blur. Let's go. I already checked. Ray tracing is in fact enabled. And we're getting pretty decent FPS at 1080p. This is not too bad considering that we are at the Can It Run Crysis preset. The game looks gorgeous, but it still looked gorgeous at 1080p with the high settings, or any other resolution with the high settings. So I didn't really find any problem with the graphics with the other settings that we were using. Yeah, I will just play at those settings. If you want a 30 FPS experience, I guess this is still kind of doable, you know. Not the greatest experience. Again, it's kind of like 4K with the high settings. Slightly better actually, but I just wouldn't really trade those sweet FPS to get the 30 plus FPS experience at the maximum settings, unless you just want to say, well, I can run Crysis at max settings at 1080p with 30 plus FPS. In that case, if you have a GTX 1080, give it a little bit of an overclock and it will be able to do that. 29 right there. Let's try to do this. Alright, that guy's down. I was aiming at his head with the first shot. I don't understand how I miss so many shots here. Alright, anyways, good stuff, good stuff. We're doing this. Still playable. Can it run Crysis? Yes, it can, even at the Can It Run Crysis preset. But of course, this is 1080p resolution that we're talking about. At 1440p and 4K, I don't expect this to be very playable. Maybe like 25 FPS at 1440p, 25 to 30, 2560 by 1440. Not very high actually. Can it run Crysis settings? Let's go. And, well, yeah, nobody should play like this. Below 30 FPS, it's quite rough. Unless you really want to re-experience Crysis as it was supposed to be played back in 2007. I don't recommend you to do this, guys. It's not really a very playable experience. It is kind of playable compared to something like the GT 710, obviously, but everything is playable compared to the 710 or G100, for example, which I tested here, not in Crysis Remastered, but in the other Crysis games. Well, yeah, this is rough for the 1080. I don't think it can run Crysis at 1440p with the max settings, unfortunately, but, you know, ray tracing is enabled and everything. The game looks very gorgeous as well. I don't think anybody expected this to be playable on the 1080 at these settings. Kind of a little bit better than what I was expecting. I told you I was expecting like 25, so it's not too bad, guys, not too bad. Well, this is 4K, my friends, 4K at the maxed out settings, except for anti-aliasing and motion blur. So here we go, 3840 by 2160. This is, yeah, and I'm just gonna disable this right here because it just might give us just one more frame. I think it did, maybe not. Well, this is way too bad. It's the same as the RX 560, I think, but that one was at the 1080p resolution, maybe on high settings as well, I don't know. Oh my god, please don't die, please don't die. Me, oh god, I was 2 HP there. This is completely unplayable, only good for screenshots, obviously. Don't do this to yourselves, don't do this to your eyes. Oh boy, alright, so we made the GTX 1080 a GT 710 here in Crysis. Just don't play like this, please. Don't do what I'm doing right now. This is just for benchmarking purposes. Gosh, okay, get over here, boy. Alright, got him. 16 FPS gaming, friends. It's doable. Can we run Crysis looking at the sky? Well, we can. We can get 30 plus, so that's amazing. Thank you very much for watching, my friends. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll hopefully catch you guys in the next one. As always, love you all. Bye-bye.